Hello, everybody. This is Boulder Uphill, and I'm your host, Brian Whitehill. And for those of you joining us for the very first time, welcome to. And for those of you returning, welcome back. This is the show where we find comedy in shared misery, we discuss trending topics, and we also reflect on the uphill battles of pursuing a bold and creative life. So that's a smooth tagline right there. Today's episode is a very exciting one because I filmed it in mid-September when I was visiting New York City, and I have on the show Matthew Corozine, who is my previous acting coach in New York City. I had a wonderful time being in his class and having him as my coach, and I grew so much, and I witnessed so much growth in the other artists in his classes. And he is someone who has really found his own over the last his own way. He's paved his own way over the last 2 decades. He started Matthew Corozine Studio Theatre in New York City 2 decades ago. So he's been growing this business / community / class / so many other things for the last 2 decades. So in this episode, we Matt and I catch up and we discuss how he came to create MCS, and also how he's kept it alive during 2020, which, as you all know, 2020 is quite the year. And I think that's all I have to say about that. I don't want to get too into it because he does a perfect job of telling it all. So without any further ado, enjoy my conversation with Matthew Corozine. So with you, because there's so much you and I can talk about,
right.
Like how you got your start and, everything going on.
Are we doing
right?
it now? Are we
It's
on?
going.
Oh,
it's going.
Okay,
so
good.
we're just chilling. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, you're actually the first person that I wanted to try out, just kind of like letting it flow.
Yeah.
And seeing where.
We don't have
and
to look. Now we're
exactly.
starting
And
it,
like,
yeah.
welcome,
Yeah.
none of that. So yeah, because there's so much to talk about, like I know we're not going to be able to get to everything. And with this being, a show about like how people began and where they're at and like the risks that we all take and, the bold ones that choose to kind of stray off the path that they thought they were supposed to be on and find something new and just taking chances. So with you, the 2 things I want to hit, and again, we can stray as we might, but the 2 things I want to hit are how you got to creating this wonderful community. Because people are gonna be able to see that we're literally on stage at your studio in New York City, which is just mind blowing.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, that's just like such an endeavor. So how you transitioned from, like growing up into Meisner work, and then into, I'm an actor and I'm always going to be an actor, but also I've found my passion for coaching. And so that's something I want to talk about with you. And then also how you've been keeping your art alive and with it, I know,
it's
which no easy feat, and not only your art but other people's. Because you are literally doing Zoom classes with people, and is there a pressure there to like that you're being relied upon, and you're like, all right, I can't let these people down, but I'm going through shit, and like we're also allowed to cuss on this if you need to.
Okay.
But like I'm going through stuff,
yes.
And how do I elevate others while I might not be feeling as elevated? So there's some, there's a lot of layers there. So those are the 2 things that I want to hit with you. And I've heard bits and pieces throughout my time with you, which was like almost maybe 8-9 months here in the studio. I've heard bits and pieces, but I know a lot of people would love to hear, how you began and where you're at now.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's good, and it's good for anybody to talk about that and remember that you, right? Yeah, Brian, for me it was acting, directing, being an actor, having a manager and agent. And I remember back then you had to go to reproductions on 30-something Street. I think reproductions still exists, and you had to like get your headshots. Nothing was digital. This is I've been teaching 20 years now, so this was after I did some Meisner work here in New York with Robert X. Modica in Carnegie Hall, which is now condos, of course. Carnegie Hall Studios, connected to the Carnegie Hall. And I did 2 years there, and I remember my teacher standing up in class, and he would stir his coffee with a switchblade. He'd go, and he would stir his coffee, and we'd all be like, wow. And he'd chain smoke, and he was a Marine. Wow. So this is who taught me compassion, empathy, sensitive things. Was from this very like disturbing presence of a masculine macho guy I think that's what for me, I really needed that. You know, I had a sensitive dad, but was just never really there. So I needed somebody that was tough.
Yeah.
I wish I had that growing up, Brian. I wish I had somebody that was tough and I had structure. I think why I'm so triggered by COVID and masks and none of the rules are clear. I think because I was raised that way. Nothing was ever clear.
Yeah.
Sometimes my parents parented me. Sometimes they didn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, Brian?
Yeah,
So I had no consistency. I could play a sport. If it got hard, I quit. Like nobody held me to anything.
Yeah.
And I got away with things because I was Vinnie Corzine's kid, and my dad's a composer and arranger and a musician, so he was kind of known. So it was almost like being a famous person's kid. I kind of was like, or like the pastor's son. Do you know what I mean? Those people, like they end up always being like the bad, rebellious.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of grew up special, which kind of fucked me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also helped me because we all are special on some level, and then we're also not, right? So that specialness kind of wiped me out. And it caught up to me in my 20s. And then I studied the Meisner work, and my teacher, we would say these truths. And I'd be like, I can't believe somebody's standing in front of a group of people and talking about the things I felt my entire life. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Somebody was putting language to Matt's inner life that needed to come out. So for me, Brian, I would just be like blown away, so attracted to the work. I got obsessed with it. I got addicted to it.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, I was 26, 27 years old. It was everything. And then I was a director, so I was always kind of a leader anyway.
Yeah.
And then I had a stage manager of mine did a show about Waco, Texas, back at the Sanford Meisner Theater, ironically, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And she said, I had a cast of 17. She said, you need to start a class of how you run these rehearsals. I'm like, I'm just teaching people to listen and respond, just the Meisner work I did in my Meisner class. I wasn't trying to be a Meisner teacher or anything, but I knew by sitting in his classes for 2 years, I knew that this is my language. Like, I just knew, like, somebody gave me a tool, that repetition exercise, to what I always wanted to get at, to trick my brain out of the way. I knew that I wanted the ego and the brain out, kind of what Julia Cameron did with The Artist's Way with Morning Pages.
Yeah.
Repetition really does that, right? Like, it really... It's an amazing exercise that to me is a correlation. You know?
And for people who don't know what the Meisner the work is, the technique, like what would it's hard to sum up, but like what would be something, because I've had to explain people outside of the
totally I think it's really the training of the body to listen and respond in the moment, and reconditioning the actor or the person to work from instinct and impulse rather than your conditioned, socialized way of being. We all have that, right? I always say if you survive 7th grade, you can be a great artist. Yeah. Because that's when like the wall gets built and the act gets built and the story that this is who I am.
I know. Yep.
And then we spend the rest of our lives confirming the story because we have to be right. Like life has to be a struggle, or whatever your story is. Yeah. And then the Meisner work kind of like broke me, which art does. Uh-huh. And now you can play all these people, Matt. You don't have to but first we got to play the character of Matt. Mm-hmm. So for me, it really finding somebody who divided themselves. I grew up Christian. I grew up gay. Those two worlds in 1980s America did not go together. Mm-hmm. So I had to divide myself, Brian. And when you divide yourself, you have shame. And that's not unique to being gay. Of course, all my students I teach, we all got it, right? Mm-hmm. But like I got very split and very divided. Yeah. So I needed something that acting to me was about playing other people. I needed to play Matt. So for me, that was a coming together. The Meisner work was like the light on Matt. You get to now be all the parts of you that you split so you could survive. And now you don't have to run from that. That's cool shit about you. And that pain and that loneliness and that gross stuff, that your sensitivities that no one liked, it's actually now really cool for you as an adult artist. Yeah. So Brian, for me, that was like, and so anyway, that stage manager told me she called Shetler Studios. She rented me a room. It's literally how it happened. Called from some friends from college, some of my castmates, and I said I'm going to do a Meisner repetition class, whatever, Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, my manager called me and she said, "You need new headshots." She had a very rough, great voice. She said, "You need headshots." And Brian, I remember I had enough money to I made up this mock ad for Backstage newspaper saying Meisner classes with Matthew Corozine. Means nothing, this stupid ad right now. Yeah. Or I had enough money to get my headshots. I only had enough to like headshots or the ad in Backstage. So this is me at 28. Did a couple of these little classes at Shetler, and I did the ad. Wow. I did the ad. Wow. And I really never looked back. on acting, like, oh, I should have never. And then that started to unravel for me, and I think I needed to build a home. I needed to build a community. I needed that very badly for myself, subconsciously. So for me, I built that, and then one of my students booked Wicked, the original cast, and then it blew up. That blew me up.
That's crazy.
Yeah. If I were to say something blew me up. Do you know what I mean?
But that spark.
That was like a cool thing that started my day class, that started Broadway community now coming in, and dancers and ensemble people like, hey, I want to talk in shows. How do I get out of this track? Oh, I heard of this guy. He's teaching acting. So that was 20 years ago, and then however long Wicked's been here, you know.
That's so crazy.
That's when it got like more solidified. So that's kind of the story of it is from directing, and then from doing that class that I did in the city that's similar to the one I teach now. And doing that ad and backstage. Oh, that's so cool.
It's
crazy, right?
Like, I mean, what a journey. I mean, one of the things that always I loved about the class was, you know, because leaving a 4-year university where it was like, all right, everyone in my acting class is like purely here for acting, or like what it was musical theater at the time. Being here, it was, you know, dancers entering into class because they never had that type of training, and you know, people hear about Meisner, and then obviously word picks up about you. I mean, that's how I found out about you. I had multiple friends who were like, you're looking for an acting class / community, like you need to go here. I literally had a friend say like, you need to join, it would be so good for you, you know. And I show up here just like, hey, hi, you know, like kind of foreign to the world of acting class, because it had been a minute. I got here my first year in the city, and I was, you know, just getting the lay of the land. I might have tried one acting class, didn't really enjoy it. Then I went on tour for a year, and I just felt that need to be around other artists and creating. And so being here, seeing actors and like you have producers come in, you have people from all walks of life, all industries come in, you know, whether they're working 9-to-5s or they're working survival gigs. And
I get the wonderful Mad Housewives, like, and those are some of my favorites too, like these non-actor, they keep it so fresh too, that it just need to be creative, and they are actors, and they might not ever pursue it.
Exactly.
But they're like, they take this class very seriously. They really invest in it. It becomes such an outlet. You know, I always say, Brian, like, my class will either get you on meds or off of meds. And I also say that your significant other will be like, when you first start this class, like, what is that class teaching you? Oh my God, it's that acting class. Oh, you're really changing. I don't like who you're becoming. Now you're so expressive and sensitive and know who you are. And then after like 6 months and you take a break from my class, you know, can you please go back to that acting class? Can you please, I can't stand it. Can you go back to that class because you need that class again? Do you know what I'm saying? Totally. So it really is like both of those worlds.
Totally.
And community is, we can't do this alone, right? You can't do life alone. You can't do art alone. Literally, you can't. You know?
And it's also, for me, it was always so profound coming in here, and you know, with the work and the repetition and the Meisner aspect of everything being, you know, a good portion of your class. A lot of it is just connecting with humans, and you know, you start and end the class of like, all right, what's something you need to release today, and at the end of the class, like, what's something you want to be, you're grateful for, and even just hearing perspectives from everyone in the class, you know, just a hugely diverse group of people. When I connect with something that someone's saying about their day, about their life, about their fears, their insecurities,
or their personal monologues.
Oh my God.
It's like
you
that. Look at someone, you're like, I would never think that would ever come out of them.
Crazy. Yeah. And so and then also you see the breakthroughs, you know, because I can speak, I had never really done a personal monologue before. And so I was really nervous going into it. And then when you feel like you've made a breakthrough, you know,
and you also think it's not going to happen to you either. Right? You watch other people, you're like, this shit's not going to work for me.
Exactly.
And then I remember yelling at you in a good way, yelling at you, Brian, and being like, that scene and getting that monologue out of you from Hat Full of Rain. And you just like, like acting that out. So cool.
Because then it's also that, I mean, it's, God, this just makes me want to, you know, do all this again, but, and I will, but even just like, you know, you find things in the moment, and it's like, if I was sitting here frustrated about dropping line or something to go my way, you're like, all right, use it. And then it just throws things in a separate direction. And so watching other people break through and feeling that in myself is a form of therapy in itself.
Well, I mean, what's that old great saying, you know, you can either be loved or you can be right? And what is being right? Being perfect. Like, we have this thing, Brian, where we're like, we've been so trained that this is how you do something, this is how you hit it, this is how you get love, this is how you get validation. You know what I mean? And it's like, and on some level, doing things right is validating. That's not wrong. That's not bad. That does feel good.
Yeah.
But when that becomes your source of love and attention on this planet, that's when it really gets off balance, right?
Yeah.
So for me, there's something about when people are vulnerable, when we use acting's the human art. It's so different than how we're trained to be people in real life.
Yeah, well, it's also like you said about being right. Like in the work and in class, I've done it and I struggle with it, and so many people do, trying to be right. No, I have to get this perfectly. Yeah. No, the beauty lies in the imperfection,
It's when you fall in love with people.
Yeah. Oh
right? It's when you let go of looking good, you actually look really good.
Yeah, that was, oh God. And
Brian, we love it in other people, we just don't love it in ourselves. Like, we love when other people are vulnerable and a mess and they're just gooey and delicious and they feel stupid. We love it.
We love watching that process.
We love watching, we fall in love with people.
Yeah. Well, so on your end, that's got to be really fulfilling, like 20 years of creating a community and watching people grow, and like when they first come in versus when they leave to go because they booked something, or when things just change. You're like, wow, like I was a part of this and I got to watch all these people, so
I always say when they're shipped to me, like I feel like people are shipped to me. And I take them out of the package, and there's some assembly required, and some parts need to come from, China or something. And we're waiting on some parts, or backdoor order, or Amazon out of stock. And you really see people change and grow. And people that quit are important too, because then they sometimes come back. But that also adds something to the class of like, oh, this is a class where not everyone stays.
Yeah.
This is a class that's not for everyone at every time in their life. Do you got me? And that took me a lot of years too, Brian, to deal with that with my own abandonment issues. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
like, why don't people love this class? Why doesn't everyone love it?
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't be a people pleaser either. That's kind of the work I teach.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Totally. So I also had to deal with my own stuff and journey. I'm healing myself in this work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
And part of healing myself is you're not going to be healed on that. And you got to just use that and tell the truth about that too, right? We want it kind of fixed and solved and presented in a nice Instagram photo that has good hashtags and is liked. You know what I mean? And on some level that's important, right? But it's like, how do you...
Well, it's like I've, because I've been present when it's very clear that, because people, like you said, people come and go, and there have been times where it's like, oh wow, this person isn't really in a place right now. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. I only saw bits and pieces.
You try to have an interview process. I do that, and you try to be like, hey, this is what and I try to see how people respond to. It's hard. It's hard stuff. It's hard. And I think people have an idea of what that could be like, and unless they've never done, or then other people are like, you can tell they're at a place in their life where they have been doing that work anyway, and this is a good. But you never know till you have them in the room either. You never know. Yeah. You never know how people, and it's the personal monologue, Brian, that, and I do that on week 2 purposely because it weeds out if I'm going to really go there or not going to go there.
Yeah. Well,
because you do it on your 3rd class in a group of people you don't know.
God, I know.
I mean, but that's pretty insane, right?
Yeah.
You have to be that vulnerable but class kind of makes you rise to that. Like people will trust that or not.
Yeah, for me, it was really frustrating too, because it's such a vulnerable place to be in. I mean, every class is, no matter what you're doing, it's vulnerable, especially in front of a group of people. Yeah. But that in particular, I remember thinking, because there's the people watching who are like, oh my God, I know exactly what he's going through, right?
Yeah.
And I hear that after, I'm like, that doesn't mean shit to me right now because I'm going through it,
Right. Yeah,
but then you're on the flip side watching someone else go through that, and you're like, man, I know, I get it.
Yeah. Or when I make people just stand there and just breathe, and they're like, I'm like, no talking, just shut up, and they're like. And they love it and they hate it because they just have to be with themselves.
Yeah. Well, so actually,
that's cool shit.
On your end, because you have said, you just said how you wish that you had had a little bit more accountability from, I guess, authority figures and all that stuff. How does it feel to be in that position where you are having to provide that accountability? That's a lot of pressure.
Well, I had a lot of anger, Brian, for years of what I didn't get. And I think you have some of those too, even just with your dad. And like, what I didn't get. And I was mad for years about what I didn't get, and it wasn't fair, And then I was realizing as a teacher, even things I didn't get from my teacher too, but like, it's because I didn't get it, that's why I need to give it. And on some level, that makes me give it to people because I was waiting. I didn't think I could give it because I didn't get it. But that's actually why I need to give it, is because I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So it kind of does something to me now, especially my students with dad stuff or parental stuff. You're a coach. You are parental. You know what I mean? And I either my kids or my students who have lost parents, or my kids and my students who have a broken relationship on some level, I have such a calling for those students.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that does a lot for me.
Yeah. And
for years that I didn't really know, but now I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know firsthand too, just from, being in class with you and plenty of other amazing people that is so appreciated, and it's not easy to accept, and it's not easy to give. So it's just like this ebb and this flow, and that's why, to me, a place like this is just so special. And I know so many other people feel the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's, it's, you built a place of solace and a place of, tears and love and laughter and creation. Like, that's crazy, especially in the world that we live in.
It is
so
crazy. It's hard to advertise what this is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard. And there is, the humor of it is important too. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of, I have to make fun of everyone too, because it's so serious. You know what I mean? And that also is me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's also very me, is the humor part, and then also the depth stuff, and that I like that it's, you never know what's going to happen in here on your toes. I want you to be comfortable, but not too comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I like that. Like, I like, there's a little danger, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
It has a little danger to it.
Yeah.
But not like you're going to, not like in a way that you can't do it.
Yeah, well, because it's funny. That makes me think of, there are people who have been in your class for a while now, and I always noticed that you would do your best to still find ways to surprise them.
Yeah.
Because there is a way to get used to the work.
Totally.
Quote unquote.
There is. Yeah, and you can get comfortable in the uncomfortable, and then kind of like have it figured out.
Exactly. Yeah. There's ways to open a certain, door and be like, cool, like, you guys are all seeing my vulnerable side right now, but it's like, all right, there's something else that you might not be sharing,
Yeah.
So I think of the times that you would really do your best to surprise them, because it's like, look, now I know you well enough. You've been in my class for a while, but now I know you well enough to know that you think you're sharing everything, but like, I can see past that,
Yeah, and that comes in time as a coach of doing this for so long. You get the same kind of personality, so you know how to deal with that personality, or how that person's brain works. Because I coach everyone very different. Some people's brains are really loud and stubborn, and they're almost like I can act out their brain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, their brain is like this, or your brain is like that. Your brain is very... like, and that's how you got to kind of like teach that personality.
Yeah.
Because that's how their brain does to them. So I have to go in like their brain, or at least talk to their brain as the person their brain would have tea with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, Brian? And like, Brian, your brain is like this, and Brian, your brain needs to know like that story about you and the TV and buying the TV. I remember that. Like, but that's like you, and so God. I need to coach you or trick you really, or I need to mess that up completely in you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And learning this and teaching this, I'm going to do both. I'm going to win you over, and then I'm also going to throw you into the alligators.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what art does, right? I think it needs to do that. I think it needs to show us ourselves and then really surprise us. We have to be surprised. Or there's people that audition and you're like, I couldn't take my eyes off of them. I didn't know what they would do next, right? People are surprising.
Well, and that's also,
So to teach people to be surprising, well, it's so interesting.
Yeah, and especially in work, I mean, written words, plays, scripts, films that have been done before.
Yeah.
Like, and you see scenes from different plays, but scenes that you've seen before, So on the actor's side, how do they keep it fresh? How do they keep it exciting? How do you make a scene that you've performed in front of a class 5 times before? What's something new you can find it in? That's, obviously part of the work as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I never tire of the repetition exercise. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I've been teaching it for 20 years. I did it in classes for 2 years or whatever before that. And I often wonder, you know, why, you know, because it's human behavior, and people are fascinating. Their blocks are fascinating. Their breakthroughs are fascinating. And I never know what anyone's going to do. I never know. Even PM1s, I don't read them before they get on stage. So I kind of like I don't know this person. I've met them 4 times. They're about to like say something, and I have no idea what they're going to say. I don't know if they're going to be a racist. I have no idea what's going to come out of their mouth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have to be responsible for that. And I have to deal with that actor and teach them something and deal with what they're going to create in the room right now.
Yeah.
And that's a little game I play. I'm responsible for everything that goes on in this room.
Yeah. That's a lot.
I kind of like that, though.
It's a lot, yeah.
I think if I just worked at a university and my salary was set and I had this group of people and they had to pass or fail, I don't think I'd like the scrappy, the stuff I don't like about it, I also like about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like being an entrepreneur and having my own business and the uncertainty of actors and their schedules and their finances and people coming and going. I don't like that, and I kind of like that. Do you know what I'm saying, Brian? I've made it work.
Yeah. Well, speaking of making it work, with the surprise of the year, you know, or I should say surprises.
Yeah.
How have you kept this alive? Like, you are a small business owner. Like, you created this ground up.
Yeah.
So something that is largely in person, you know, and largely created in this space. How have you rolled with those punches, you know? And it's been obviously a hell of a year, and people are literally just trying to, you know, keep their heads above water.
Yeah.
You included. How have you managed to keep this alive?
Yeah, on some level, well, and another level, personally, it took more of a toll on me than I even realized it did, and it came up in ways that I'm working on with my relationship, in my marriage. I think I needed more help than I knew how to even ask for. Who would know how to be in this? But yeah, I had to come in and fill out PPP application. I didn't know QuickBooks. My assistants were gone. You know, everyone was scattered, and I was like, I had to come in and figure it out. But it was unsafe to be outside. Like, it was like nuts. But I had to get this application in. I didn't even know how to print reports because I hired people to, you know what I mean? So it was like, and then I gave back my other spaces, and we just kept this space. And there's something about simplifying that I needed to do in my life anyway. So on some level, it's a relief. Brian, I'm like, I don't need a huge staff. I don't need all these teachers. I want to get back to just me and my classes. So on some level, that's been great that I don't need more. And I was falling in the more disease, which is about validation and things I thought I needed to look good. I fell into that. And I don't want that anymore. I want the stuff I love and the stuff that brings me joy. Right. So I think that was a good weeding out and a wake-up call of a crashing. We all had to crash. And we all had to find, like, oh, these are really my friends. These are the people I really called me and I like. This is what I want to do. And then I took all my classes and I put them on Zoom. And everyone fell apart. And we pieced together little classes at a discounted rate. We started with just a once a week, one day, and then now it's developed again to 2, and some people are doing 2, some people are doing 1. I've gotten new people I never met. I'm making them interview now and do the twice a week track, just like you would in real life, and it is not the same. We found a way to really do Meisner really well on Zoom. It does translate into its own there's something about being in person and
of course
watching someone breathe in the room and then have a breakdown, you know what I mean? But it's as far as an acting class goes on Zoom, I think it's pretty damn good. I think there's definitely quality. I think it's a great acting class online. You can't really compare it to in person. You have to take it for what it is.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, Brian, it's been I think everything, it's like an independent activity. The plate broke all over the sidewalk. I picked up all the pieces and some glue. I glued it back together. It's missing a few pieces. Yeah. The plate doesn't look perfect. You can eat on it. Like, I kind of feel like that. Yeah. Like, I made a plate. Look, I made a hat.
Well, and like,
there
it's
a hat, it's a plate.
Might be a stray piece.
Yeah, there's a stray piece over there that I might not find for 2 years.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's okay. It's actually cool. It's not stupid. It's not lame. It's actually something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been really good. It's been keeping me going, and
good. And getting that feedback from because especially at the end of classes. Have you really felt like you are still able to, have a community here?
Yeah.
And I know it's still a place of solace for people.
Yeah.
So how has that really helped you through this time? Just knowing like, wow, I still get to see human connection and like,
yes,
there is still good in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah. And I think classes started a little, of course, sad and weird, and we're going to sing Kumbaya and be really, we're not going to really have a real class yet. You know what it's going to be like?
Yeah.
Let's just we're all being careful.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's now been removed, and we've all accepted this is how the world is right now.
Mm-hmm.
This too shall pass. We don't have an answer of X, Y, Z. But okay, now, and I've even been saying online now, hey, this is your New York City acting class. Let's really do it.
Yeah.
Like now I'm getting like annoyed and impatient of like people lounging in their living rooms. Like, I'm like, can you like move and repeat? Like, let's go. Like, I know it's, not the same, but like, let's invest and treat it like, let's stop saying this is a shitty year and doesn't everything suck? Okay. So now let's do something and look, you created something. You're doing something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean, Brian? Within it being shitty. Yeah. It is. I'm not denying it's shitty.
Both can be true.
Yeah, both can be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get back into like, let's make this as cool as we possibly can without denying the truths of it. Yeah. People freeze and you're like, they froze on screen. Use it. Somebody's cat walks by the screen. Use it. Do you know what I mean? Someone just put your attention on her. Her video just went up. I mean, do you know, we're going to tell just like here, if the luggage people are loud, somebody is eating their sandwich and you're doing your, we're going to use that.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm taking those same principles of whatever happens as part of class. It's part of class.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, Brian? So I think on that level, and the world is like this and we have to accept it and work with it.
Yeah. Totally.
So I'm not fighting it anymore. Many of us, I'm sure, a big fight with the world. Like, I can't accept this. You know? And I'm like,
of course,
I have to accept this and work with what I have. So on that level, that's when gratitude comes in. That's when community is there. That's when I'm like, yes, this is the mat I want to be and walk into, and I want to coach my students to walk into the best possible them that they can't even see yet.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's also, with this whole year, it's no matter what, it's trying to pace yourself for a marathon. You don't know how long it will last, which is never an easy thing to do. So finding any form of stability in that, I think is incredibly important. So no matter what, if this is still a staple of people's week, like we need structure, no matter what, and especially in a community, and especially in a form of outlet. So I applaud you for
thank you for that. I mean, I look forward to it one day being behind me, or just keeping one Zoom class for those who are out of state or out of whatever, that's not a horrible thing.
How is that? Because you've probably gained students that weren't even New York based.
No.
Wow. Okay. That's
and students I haven't seen for years, or I have a student now in Germany and one in London or whatever, like it's like, and that's been really cool, is like uniting all those worlds together.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And possibly, that might not have come out of all of this, no,
there's no way.
There wasn't, Zoom classes were not on your horizon.
I didn't even know what Zoom was.
I didn't know what Zoom was either. And everybody was like, oh yeah, it was for businesses. I was like, I'd never heard of Zoom.
I've never even heard of it.
Ever. Yeah.
Should have bought stock in it. You know what I mean?
I
know.
Yeah.
No, but it's true. I had no world of this. But I think, and you remember too, I think the first week I got on Zoom, once I knew that Broadway closed and that in-person classes is dangerous, we stopped our classes that next Wednesday or something. I was like, here's a Zoom class, 10 people, $30, whatever it was, and And then it just grew and grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, which is amazing. And I think that people probably fell back into it once they felt more comfortable with their lives too.
I think so. Yeah, and people are coming and going, and that's cool, and that's life, and finances are always changing, and jobs and moving, and I mean, people are really like, I'm moving to, everyone's moved somewhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's switched a job or lost a job.
Yeah.
There's been a lot. There's a lot going on with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I know a few people who have switched from New York to LA and vice versa.
People that came back to New York from LA?
Yeah, weirdly, a few of my friends, they, like people living in my old apartment, they are performers, and one of them is like, oh yeah, I have a friend that's an actor that just moved to the city. I was like, right now? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. But also,
I think LA would be more fun right now, or like more open and
it
spread out, and the weather.
It is and it isn't. Because we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but like LA itself is a very spread out place.
Yeah.
So already the community is very different, and the art is very different. But then obviously you shut everything down. Like being back there versus here. Like I've been here for a week and I leave in a few days. And the media's throwing out like New York's dead and this and that, but it's like being here, I'm like, it's still so beautiful, and there's still a lot of faith to be had in the city and the community. So it's really,
and it's better now than it's been since COVID.
Oh yeah,
it's actually a lot better now. With some of the gyms being open and outdoor seating and the weather being cool. Yeah.
I went with two of my roommates from my old apartment uptown. We walked around Hell's Kitchen, and they were like, "This is the most people I've seen out and about at this time," and it was like 2 p.m. on a Thursday or something, because they hadn't gone downtown much this whole time. So it is very different, and you had asked me earlier, if I see myself back here 100%, and I think this visit has kind of solidified the fact that I know that I don't have to necessarily just pick. It's like, all right, well, now that it's LA, that's it for good. Like I know that I have such a community here and people I love, and so this has been encouraging, just being back in the city, knowing that it's still here.
Yeah.
And as much as it's changed, it still has the heart of it is still here. So that's what I've just appreciated, being back here for almost 10 days. So it's encouraging.
It's good to hear that, though. Actually, from somebody who's been removed from it and now is back in it, that you feel like that.
Yeah. Well, and I left May of 2019, and so it's been a year since being back, and it just, it's stepping into old shoes, and so it excites me that we don't know what's coming in a positive light, because for now I'm in LA and I'm doing it, and I'm figuring it out. Granted, 6 months in, things go on pause, so career-wise, I was like, all right, great, like I moved, and then everything.
But film and TV is starting back again now, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is, right? They're doing it like they know how to do it on set, and SAG's been really cool with that.
Yeah.
And like giving guidelines, unlike Equity, right?
Yeah. And I've heard like the theater world with Equity and the rules and everything is just so sporadic right now. So yeah, thankfully in the LA market and the film world, things are starting up. So now it's like, okay, the world's opening up. And now I'm like slowly dipping my toes into like being a human again.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. What are ways that I can start taking steps with less pressure than I had before? Because for some reason, and you saw me, a year ago, for some reason this last year, aside from COVID and everything, I have just like felt more accepting of where I'm at. Not like, oh my God, I'm not there yet, or oh, I should have done this differently. I'm getting a lot better at just being where I'm at, and like that is a huge win for me.
Acceptance, it's the key. And I used to think acceptance was like, oh well, then I have to accept I'm at a dead end, like then it's like it's over, it's like the end of it's actually a whole new chapter, and it can lead to such new possibilities. And I always see, if I accept it, then I'm stuck. I always saw acceptance as being stuck, which is so bizarre. It actually is not. It is not being stuck. It's actually the way you move forward. Yeah. And I never saw it that way. I didn't. It's just I'm like, I can't accept that. That's terrible.
I think people equate it to complacency.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too.
And that doesn't have. They're not the same.
No, I think acceptance is actually what makes you move forward, because you have to deal with what exists.
Yeah, with what's in front of you.
What's in front of you.
Yeah.
It's the matador. They go with the bull.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They don't go against it. They go with it. It's happening. That force is coming, and they move with it. You know what I mean? Like that, I think, is how it is. You know.
Yeah. Well, so for you, I try to, leave each episode with not a bit of advice, but just if you had to speak to anyone, on their way up or possibly finding their way in a similar way that you did when you were 26, 27, navigating this one world, and then you realize there's a wide array of possibilities within that same world, and you had no idea that you were even going on that path. What would you say to someone if they were to walk in the door and join your class, or even just out in the world in any industry that feels like they're not sure what the next step is to take? Like where's that line of acceptance of, okay, I'm feeling like I want to make a change. I'm not sure. Okay, I have this sum of money. Which path do I put it down? Like that type of stuff. What's something you would say if
I think the main thing I'd say, Brian, would be you got to have a community, right? You got to have a tribe and not do it alone. So you got to choose that thing that at least surrounds you by somebody, that some ensemble of something, right? I mean, of course I believe in, taking a class and throwing yourself in and committing. I think committing is the hardest thing for people to do. That's the hardest thing, is to get anybody to commit to anything. It's really, really hard.
Because we want instant.
We want instant stuff. So to know that there's a process, to know that there's demands something of me to get something out of it, and as a business owner, that I can get people to commit to 3 months of class or whatever it is that my thing is, you know what I mean? Like you have to commit to get this thing. So you got to commit, which is a risk. And you got to have community, and you got to that little bliss in you, that you got that little thing. I'm so glad I pursued acting. It took me to where I am today. Do you know what I mean? I'm so glad I didn't know that I couldn't have known that. Right. So I had to pursue fully this dream of mine since I was a kid. Then find out, okay, maybe I wanted to be an actor for reasons that aren't the same reasons anymore. You know what I mean? Or actually I wanted to find that. I didn't even know that. Acting took me to that. That took me to my acting coach, that took me to the Meisner work, that took me to I want to help unblock people. I do that through acting. I teach acting, but I don't teach acting. Do you know what I mean? It's about people and story, right? We're so born to be in story, right? Or tell stories, respond to stories, act out our stories. We have so many personal monologues in us. It's endless. And some of us are so called, man, we just need to be seen, or we need to get the stuff out, or we need to connect in a way that real life isn't enough. I don't know why some of us have that. I think it's a cool thing.
I agree.
But I think everybody needs to be seen. Everybody, there's so many universal, we're all the same. Just some people have the knob is turned on a higher flame of man, I just need to I have something I need to give the world, or.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
I think that stuff is universal. Passion is universal. Everyone has that. But some people, it's life circumstances, or what we lacked, we need to get. Right? The stuff I didn't get taught, or the stuff I wanted my dad to do, or whatever. I can offer that now, or I can do that.
So, I guess following that spark, within you.
Yeah, I think, to answer that question, I think you got to do that thing that gives you joy, right? That passion thing. And I don't mean joy it's fun. It's like that, or it's like a struggle too. That thing that you lose yourself in, and it brings out a better you. I think you got to find that. And then I think when you find that thing that you get lost in, that you don't know what time it is, like I am right now with you, because I'm talking about myself. Do you know what I mean? Then Brian, you gotta how do I cultivate that? Where do I go to now do that? It's photography. Great. Now go and be the best photographer you can possibly be. Find those people, or those recommendations that are you got to go there, or you got to live there, or you got to do this thing with this guy. Someone said to you, you got to go study with Matt and be at MCS. I think that people want you to have what they have, right? People that love you want you to have, or they see your crap and they're like, oh, you got to get cleared. Come on, go. This will help you as an actor. You know what I mean? I think that's the best stuff is, you got to do that spark fully.
Okay.
And commit.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I I think that that rounds out the episode. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on. And I majority of the reason why I wanted you on is because this was such a huge community to me, and I know how many people you positively affect, and I also know how many people would benefit from hearing your story. So just know that I appreciate you coming on, and appreciate you as a human. So yeah,
thanks.
You.
It means a lot to me.
Yeah, of
really
course.
Touched me. I'm like, I could cry here. That's
Yeah. So I'm excited to share this with other people.
Awesome.
And so I think with that, we will call it a day.
Call it a day. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
This means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited you're doing this.
Yeah.
I just feel really honored.
Yeah. Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will end it.